speak, because the United States is wanting to exit Afghanistan. But who's going to be taking over after we do? Of course, for this and all other related questions, we go to Stephen Yates, foreign policy expert with the D.C. International Advisory and also former advisor to former VP Dick Cheney as well. Stephen, happy Monday to you.
Hi, Dana.
This discussion between President Obama and Hamid Karzai, I hear so many different reports as more and more of our forces leave in Afghanistan. It seems as though the Taliban is just kind of boosting its numbers again and taking more and more control in the country. What is the outcome that the United States wants to see, at least with this administration?
I think this administration just wants to sort of check the box and say everything is done. Unfortunately for them, it isn't quite that simple, as they continue to learn about what real military options are and what real commitments to foreign theaters really are. I mean, we can't go to zero in Afghanistan and expect there not to be a resurgence of the Taliban and al-Qaeda-affiliated groups. So there was a bit of kabuki theater in Washington. There was allegedly a meeting between our president and Afghanistan's president, and both sides seemed to talk very differently about it as they parted. Only thing clear is the United States wants to go as low as it possibly can on troops, and Hamid Karzai is left making a deal with the devils he lives with in his own theater.
Yeah, so it seems as though we're trying to essentially. Reuters says that we're wanting to accelerate our withdrawal from the country, but at the same time, if we hand over combat operations to Afghan forces, I mean, are they even up to being able to handle that yet?
I don't think they are, and they may never be. I mean, if you just look at comparable capabilities of neighboring countries and what one should reasonably expect of a country of that level of development, there are some options that I think General Allen was confident that they could, in conjunction with a low footprint, be able to keep a capability, be able to respond, thwart, and basically play a little bit of a whack-a-mole game. As when a force would organize and present a threat, they could conduct a joint operation to knock it out, which is better than going to zero where we were pre-9/11.
It seems as though they're just giving a timeline out to the Taliban. Oh, by the end of 2014, we're going to be out of there. The complete transition of power will be finished. So essentially, the Taliban can just kind of sit back on their heels and, wait to see what happens and, before amping up their presence. Because we already see they're essentially they're doing it already, but it's just not in your face, at least from what I see. I mean, isn't that sort of just like is signaling to your enemy, look, we're leaving now. So just, hang back and relax. And then when we're out, you can go ahead and come in and do what you were doing.
I think it's absolutely true. And I think that's also been true ever since the president's 2009 West Point speech, when I think he began a process of managed failure in Afghanistan. A lot of our neoconservative pals in the world talked about how bold the president was in putting forth this vision. I think it was a bill of goods, and it's essentially proven true to be managed failure from that day forward. It's absolutely true that if you tell the enemy when you plan to leave, they see a much greater opportunity of going after the people left behind.
Now, for all of the individuals who are saying, okay, so what? Let's just go ahead. We'll accelerate our withdrawal from Afghanistan. Go ahead and give control over to these combat operations, over to the Afghan military. Let them be able to handle it. We just need to be out of it. Let them deal with it themselves. What is the consequence of that?
Well, primarily, those are the kind of people that believe that you can sort of like an economics professor assume away a problem. And, the Taliban and those that are affiliated with al-Qaeda, the country of Pakistan, which has gone completely unaddressed by this administration, those things don't just go away. And so you end up with less U.S. influence over what might once again come out of that theater to attack us or our allies.
Now, we have a situation as well with France, of course, is being threatened by the Taliban, who've apparently they've taken over or trying to at least create their own country within a country in Africa. And France has been fighting that. They tried a rescue effort with an intelligence officer in Somalia. That failed. And now we have the Taliban essentially trying to, as I said, create a country within a country. And I know that the administration is being criticized for not really offering much help. Is this something in which we should be involved in?
Well, we should definitely care about it more. And if we had an administration that admitted that terrorists were still organizing, spreading, and plotting to attack us, I mean, this northern Mali territory has been a concern, and it is directly related to the upheaval in Libya that affected the Benghazi attack. And so, I mean, this is actually a very serious thing. It's in the Africa theater of operations. The French do seem to only get tough when it comes to attacks in the former colonies that they ran in Africa and elsewhere. And so this is one of those things where in the continent of Africa, we do tend to defer to former colonial powers in a very odd way to take a lead. I don't have a problem with the French taking a lead and trying to help the Mali government establish effective control of its territory, but I don't believe in outsourcing American interests to other countries. And if there is al-Qaeda, armaments, proliferation problems, other things like that there, we should at least know about it, and we should probably be more actively supportive.
Yes, and yes, it's I meant to say Al-Qaeda as opposed to the Taliban there, but this is it's kind of interesting to see France. I'm a little bit surprised, to be honest with you, just to see Francois Hollande continue this, because this has kind of been going on for a long time with France in Somalia, and I'm sort of surprised that he just didn't kind of pull an Obama administration and say, you know what, we just need to stop this. It's I'm not quite sure what to make of that. France is confusing me right now, Stephen.
Well, I think that they confuse themselves a great deal too. But it is interesting they did not go to NATO. This is one of those. They basically are unilaterally intervening to help a former colony. So it is interesting that the international left is so averse to anything we do according to the alleged rules of the road, but they can take these kinds of acts, but that's bygones. But the French have an interesting definition of nationalism, and they still feel, whether it's paternalism or nationalism, they feel that they at some level have to act. This northern Mali territory was about to declare independence. It was destabilizing the rest of Mali. I mean, really, it was going to be a failed state.
Yeah. I wanted to get your thoughts really quickly on the president's last press conference of his first term. Were you able to catch any of it? And if so, what are your thoughts?
I did catch a good bit of it. I'm torn between this president being the most passive-aggressive leader we've ever had, or whether he's the matador-in-chief that's up there waving a cloth and lures you in thinking you're going to get a solution. He just pulls it back, and blame and responsibility passes through to others. It's as if he has never had any role whatsoever in the increase in spending. He has never really had any responsibility to consult with the body he used to serve in the Senate. It's as if the Democrats didn't control the Senate, and he had actually passed budgets in the past. Yeah. But I just find it all mind-blowing when he goes from gun control, which is just in fantasy land. I know there's been plenty of discussion on that discourse, all the way to just fiscal responsibility. And I think, unfortunately, it makes the U.S. a laughing stock in the world.
Yes. Stephen Yates, D.C. International Advisory. We so appreciate your perspective, Stephen. And I hope you're going to be at CPAC coming up in D.C.
I would love to do that. I'm just going to have to coordinate my logistics.
Oh, if so, I would love to finally meet you in person. We'll be broadcasting from there, so it would be great. Stephen Yates, always a pleasure. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, Dana.
Right, take care. Folks,